I used to think loving her was the best thing that ever happened to me. I used to wake up every morning with her name on my lips and a stupid smile on my face. I used to believe that the way my heart raced when she texted me was proof of something real, something rare, something worth holding on to no matter what it cost. Looking back now, it was the most expensive mistake of my life. Not just financially, though God knows I spent more than I should have. But emotionally, mentally, in ways I didn't even understand until I was standing on the other side of it, wondering how I had let myself disappear so completely into someone who had never once chosen me back. Her name was Lila. She was the kind of girl everyone admired from a distance. Quiet, composed, always saying the right things at the right times. She had this way of carrying herself that made people pay attention, not because she demanded it, but because she seemed so above needing it. "I don't like relying on others," she would say, chin lifted, eyes steady. "I'll earn everything myself." People loved that about her. Professors praised her independence. Classmates admired her confidence. Friends looked up to her like she was something they wanted to become. I did too. I loved everything about her. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. The way she laughed, soft, controlled, like she was always aware of who might be watching. The way she made me feel like I was special just because she let me stand beside her. That's why I never told anyone the truth. Because behind that independent image she had carefully constructed, I was the one paying for almost everything. It started small. The way these things always do. "Hey, I forgot my wallet," she said one afternoon, looking up at me with those big, dark eyes. "Can you cover lunch? I'll pay you back." Of course I said yes. I would have said yes to anything back then. She didn't pay me back, of course. But I didn't mind. It was just lunch. Just a few dollars. What did it matter when I got to spend an extra hour with her, watching her eat, listening to her talk, pretending that this was the beginning of something? "Hey, you don't have to do this," she would say softly, pushing the gift back toward me whenever I handed her something new. Her fingers would brush against mine. Her eyes would drop. She would look almost embarrassed, almost uncomfortable, like she genuinely didn't want to accept whatever I was offering. But she never really pushed hard. She never said no. Never walked away. Never handed the money back once it was in her pocket. And me? I'd smile and insist. "It's fine. I wanted to." She'd hesitate, then accept. Every single time. I told myself that was just her nature. That she was proud, independent, uncomfortable with generosity. That her hesitation was proof of her goodness, not evidence of manipulation. I was so young. So stupid. So desperate to be seen by someone who had never once looked at me the way I looked at her. Lunch became dinner. Dinner became groceries. Groceries became rent contributions that she started asking for, just this once, and then kept asking for every month. Transportation. Clothes for important events that somehow always required something new. Then it grew. A new phone, because hers broke, and she couldn't afford a replacement. A designer bag, because she needed it to fit in with some group that could help her career. Scholarship fees that somehow always needed extra money. Processing fees, late fees, administrative fees that didn't appear on any official paperwork I ever saw. And me? I was just happy she let me stay close. I worked 2 jobs. I skipped meals without really noticing. I told myself that this was what love looked like. Sacrifice, generosity, putting someone else's needs above your own. That one day she would see everything I had done for her, and she would finally choose me. My friends noticed long before I did. "Dude, don't you think it's weird?" Mark asked one night. We were sitting in his car after a late shift, eating fast food that tasted like nothing. We've never seen her pay for anything. Not once. Not even coffee. "She's different," I said immediately, the words automatic, rehearsed. "She's just proud. She doesn't like accepting help. I have to convince her every time." Mark raised an eyebrow, chewing slowly. "Yeah. Proud enough to take your money though. Proud enough to let you work 2 jobs while she walks around with a bag that costs more than my rent." I laughed it off. Changed the subject. Convinced myself that Mark just didn't understand. He had never been in love. He didn't know what it was like to care about someone so much that their happiness became more important than your own. But the thing is, love makes you stupid like that. It rewires your brain. It makes you blind to things that should be obvious, deaf to warnings that should be deafening, numb to the slow erosion of your own self-worth. Because the truth I couldn't admit even to myself, was that Lila had never called me her boyfriend. Not once. We spent almost every day together. I paid for almost everything she needed. I knew her schedule, her allergies, her coffee order, the names of her childhood pets. I had met her friends, her roommates, even her mother once, over a video call where I was introduced as a really good friend. But never boyfriend. Let's just stay like this, she told me one night, her head resting on my shoulder, her voice soft and sweet. Labels ruin things. They put pressure on people. They make everything complicated. We were sitting on a bench near the campus fountain, the water glittering under the streetlights, the world feeling small and safe and full of possibility. Why can't we just enjoy what we have without naming it? She continued. What we have is special. I don't want to ruin it. I looked down at her, at the way her hair spilled across my shoulder, at her fingers loosely intertwined with mine. And I believed her. Of course I did. Because I wanted to believe her. Because the alternative, that she was using me, that she would never love me, that I was pouring everything I had into someone who saw me as nothing more than a wallet, was too painful to consider. So I nodded. I smiled. I said she was right, that labels were overrated, that what mattered was how we felt, not what we called it. And I kept paying, kept working, kept hoping. Her birthday was the day everything broke. I remember it too clearly. Every detail, every word, every expression that crossed her face like clouds passing over the sun. The flowers in my hands were white roses, her favorite. I had walked 40 minutes to a specialty shop because no one else carried the specific variety she had once mentioned in passing, a detail I had tucked away and treasured like a secret. I had spent days planning everything. Reserved a small cafe she liked, the one with the fairy lights and the homemade pastries. Got her the exact bag she once stared at for 5 whole minutes in silence. 5 minutes that had felt like an eternity to me, watching her eyes linger on the display, watching her touch the leather like she was afraid it might disappear. I had spent almost 2 months of savings on that bag. I thought, maybe today, maybe this would be the day she finally saw me. Finally realized that I was the one who had been there all along, the one who had given her everything, the one who would never stop choosing her. Maybe today she would finally call me her boyfriend. When I walked into the cafe, she was already there. With people. More people than I expected. Friends I recognized. Classmates I had seen around campus. Even some seniors I had never spoken to, people who moved in circles far above mine. The cafe looked different than I had imagined it. Louder. More crowded. Someone had brought speakers. Someone else had brought alcohol, which definitely wasn't allowed. The fairy lights were still there, but they didn't feel magical anymore. They just felt like lights. Lila was in the center of it all, laughing at something someone had said, her head tilted back, her smile wide and bright. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. But when she saw me, her expression changed. Not happy to see me. Not surprised in a good way. Surprised like someone had just found a stain on a white shirt. "Hey," I said, smiling, holding out the flowers. "Happy birthday." The room went quiet for a second. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Someone whispered something I couldn't quite hear, but I caught the tail end of it. "Oh, it's him." Lila stood up slowly from her chair. Her eyes moved from my face to the flowers to the gift bag in my other hand. Her smile had disappeared entirely. "What are you doing here?" Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It was sharp, edged with something that sounded almost like anger. I blinked, confused. "I came for your birthday. I wanted to surprise you." She let out a small, bitter laugh. The kind of laugh that isn't funny at all. "I didn't invite you." The room shifted. I felt it, that uncomfortable tension, the way people glanced at each other, the way someone coughed to break the silence. I forced myself to keep smiling, to stay calm, to pretend this wasn't already going wrong. "I just wanted to celebrate with you." I even got you something special. I lifted the gift bag slightly, hoping it might soften whatever was happening. Stop. Her voice cut through me like a blade. Do you think this is cute? Showing up like this? Acting like you belong here? Someone chuckled in the background. A low, mean sound that made my face grow hot. My grip tightened around the flowers. The paper crinkled under my fingers. Laya, what's wrong? I don't understand. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the anger in her eyes, the way her nostrils flared, the tension in her jaw. What's wrong is that you don't understand your place. That hurt. More than I expected. More than I wanted to admit. I've told you before, she went on, crossing her arms over her chest, her voice rising so everyone could hear. I don't need your money. I don't need your gifts. I've built everything myself, and I don't appreciate you acting like you're part of my success. A few people nodded. Of course they did. They only knew her version. The version where she was independent and strong and I was just some guy who couldn't take a hint. You keep throwing things at me like I owe you something, she said. Like buying me things makes you important. Like I should be grateful just because you decided to spend money on me. I shook my head slowly, my throat tight. I never said you owed me anything. I never said that. But you act like it, she snapped. Her voice was loud now, loud enough that people at other tables were turning to look. You act like because you bought me lunch a few times, I should be yours. Like I'm some kind of prize you can win with your wallet. The room was completely silent now. Everyone watching. Waiting. Enjoying the spectacle. I was just trying to help, I said quietly. I cared about you. I wanted to make things easier for you. She scoffed. Actually scoffed, like the very idea was ridiculous. Help. She looked around at the others, spreading her hands like she was inviting them to share in her disbelief. See? This is exactly what I mean. He thinks he's helping. He thinks he's being sweet. But really he's just... She looked back at me. And smiled. Not kindly. Not warmly. The kind of smile that's really just a weapon in a different shape. Pathetic. That word landed harder than anything else. Harder than the anger. Harder than the embarrassment. Harder than the sound of someone laughing in the background. For someone like you, she continued, her voice dropping to something almost conversational, you should really learn some self-respect. It's sad, honestly. Following me around. Buying me things. Acting like we're something we're not. My ears rang. I couldn't hear anything else for a moment. Just that word echoing in my head, over and over. Pathetic. 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 I looked down at the flowers in my hands. The white roses I had walked 40 minutes to buy. The gift bag with the bag she had stared at for 5 minutes. The proof of everything I had given, everything I had sacrificed, everything I had believed in. And something inside me finally snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a thread that had been stretched too thin for too long finally giving way. Okay, I said. Too calm. She frowned, caught off guard by my tone. What? I nodded slightly, looking her in the eyes for what I realized might be the last time. You're right. That caught her off guard. Her confidence flickered for just a second. I should have some self-respect. I should have listened to my friends. I should have seen what everyone else could see. I placed the flowers on the nearest table. Not in her hands. Not on the gift table. An offering she had already rejected. And you don't need my help. Silence. Real silence this time. Not the tense silence of people waiting for drama, but the shocked silence of people realizing something important is happening. So I'll stop. Her expression flickered. Just for a second. Something passed behind her eyes, confusion, maybe, or concern, or just the realization that the game had changed. What are you talking about? She said quickly. I smiled. Not warmly. Not cruelly. Just clearly. All the money. The gifts. The scholarship fees. The rent contributions. The groceries. Everything. I shrugged lightly, feeling lighter than I had in years. They stopped today. Her face changed. Subtle. But I saw it. The tightening of her jaw, the way her hands clenched at her sides, the flash of something that might have been panic. "You're being dramatic," she said, her voice higher than before. "Maybe," I replied. "But I'm also done." I turned and started walking away. "Wait." Her voice came fast. Too fast. Desperate in a way I had never heard before. I paused. Not because I wanted to, but because some part of me, the part that had loved her, the part that still remembered the way she used to hold my hand, needed to hear what she would say. "You're seriously going to act like this?" she said. "In front of everyone?" I let out a small breath. "You told me to have self-respect." I glanced back. Just once. "I'm finally listening." And I left. I walked out of that cafe with my head high and my chest hollow. I didn't look back to see her face. I didn't wait to hear what anyone said. I just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, until the cafe was far behind me and the street was quiet and I was alone with nothing but the sound of my own footsteps. That was the last day I ever gave her anything. At first, nothing changed. At least, not on the surface. She still walked across campus like she owned it, still smiled at the right people, still said all the right things about independence and hard work and not needing anyone. But little cracks started showing. "Hey, did your scholarship get delayed?" someone asked her one day in the library. "I heard some payments didn't go through." She laughed it off, waving her hand like it was nothing. "Yeah, administrative issues. You know how the financial aid office is. They'll figure it out." But I knew. I knew because I had been the one making those payments. I had been the one transferring money into accounts that didn't have my name on them, covering gaps that shouldn't have existed, filling holes that kept getting deeper. A week later, her phone changed. Back to an older model, the screen slightly cracked, the case worn at the edges. Then the designer bags disappeared. One by one, they stopped appearing on her arm, replaced by cheaper things, older things, things that didn't draw the same attention. Then the cafe visit stopped. The dinners out. The late-night food runs that used to end with me pulling out my card without being asked. People started noticing. Quietly. In the way that people do, glances exchanged, whispers shared, the slow spread of information that doesn't need to be spoken aloud to be understood. And then one day, she came to me. I was sitting outside campus on my favorite bench, the one near the old oak tree where I used to study before everything got complicated. I was drinking coffee, just coffee, nothing fancy, no pastry, no second cup, and watching the clouds move across the sky. Something I hadn't done in a long time. Something I had forgotten I enjoyed. She stood in front of me, blocking the sun. Silent at first. Just standing there, her shadow falling across my legs, her hands gripping the strap of her bag. "Hey," she said. Soft again. Like before. Like the old days. I looked up. "Hey." She hesitated, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "Can we talk?" I leaned back slightly, setting my coffee down on the bench beside me. "About?" Her fingers tightened around her bag strap. Her jaw worked like she was chewing on words she wasn't sure how to say. "About us." I almost smiled. Almost. "There is no us, Lila." That hit. I saw it. The way her eyes flickered, the way her composure cracked just slightly, the way she swallowed hard. "I didn't mean what I said that day," she rushed, the words tumbling out like she had been rehearsing them. "I was stressed. People were watching. I felt pressured. I raised a hand. Gently. Stopping her. "You said exactly what you meant." Her eyes reddened slightly. Whether from genuine emotion or practice performance, I couldn't tell anymore. "No. You said you don't need me," I continued, my voice quiet but steady. "And you were right. You don't. You never did. You just wanted what I could give you." Silence. Heavy and thick. "I was wrong," she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah. You were." She took a step closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the same one she had always worn, the one I used to love. I like you. Always have." I didn't know how to say it. I was scared. That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because of the timing. Because of everything. "Now?" I asked. She froze. "Now you like me? Now that the money's gone? Now that the gifts have stopped?" Now that everyone can see what I was really doing for you. Her lips parted, but no words came out. When everything's gone, I added quietly, that's when you suddenly have feelings? I'm not, that's not. I don't hate you, I said. And that was true. Somewhere beneath everything, beneath the anger and the embarrassment and the years of being used, there was no hatred. Just exhaustion. Just clarity. Just the quiet understanding that she was who she was, and I was who I was, and we had never been what I thought we were. I just see you clearly now. That hurt her more than anger ever could. Her eyes filled with tears, real ones, maybe or maybe not. I had stopped being able to tell the difference. You really won't help me anymore? She asked, her voice small. I looked at her for a long second, then shook my head. No. I picked up my coffee, stood up from the bench, left her standing there in the sunlight with nothing but her shadow and the silence. And this time, I didn't feel anything when I walked away. Not anger. Not sadness. Not the hollow ache of loss. Just relief. The kind of relief that comes from finally putting down something too heavy to carry. Funny thing is, loving her felt like everything. Like the sun rose and set at her command. Like my heart had no purpose except to beat for her. Like everything I did, everything I earned, everything I sacrificed, it was all worth it because it was for her. But letting her go? That felt like finally breathing. Like taking the first deep breath after years of holding it. Like waking up from a dream that had felt real but was actually just a nightmare dressed in white roses and soft smiles. I still see her sometimes. Walking across campus. Sitting in the library. Laughing with friends who don't know the full story, who will never know the full story. And sometimes, when our eyes meet across a crowded room, I see something flicker across her face. Regret, maybe? Or embarrassment? Or just the memory of everything she lost when I finally stopped giving. But I don't stop. I don't approach. I don't wonder what might have been. I just keep walking. Because I finally learned what self-respect actually means. It's not about how much you give. It's about knowing when to stop.